What's going on YouTube? What you're looking at is intake manifold off a 2007 Audi A8, and I was going to do a how to remove it video, but it was getting late and I was trying to hurry up, and I didn't have a light, didn't have no light, didn't have an extra set of hands to be holding the phone either. So I'm just gonna do it off the car. I might do it a reverse video on how to put it back on, but for the most part, it's pretty simple. This is my first time doing it. I watched other videos online about how to remove it and everything, but it just, they were good videos, but just wasn't detailed enough for me. And I'm here to try to give a little bit more detail on what all I did to make it that much easier for me. Now, to keep it real simple, it's 10 bolts that go in these slots right here. 5 on this side, 5 on that side. That's all that's holding the intake manifold down. Now, there's other stuff in the way. If this was on the car, there's a bracket that goes to the engine here and over here, which is, if they were still there, it would be hitting this on the way out, as well as the bolts that go in this slot and this slot in the front. There's the electrical lines that run down the length of the intake on both sides, and there's 2 brackets that holds the looms in place. They held it by 10mm bolts. Just pop them out of the way, and like I said about the brackets in the front, there's also 2 brackets in the back, and they require special tools. I don't have the tools with me, they in the car, but they are a triple box. Pretty much a 12 point Torx bit, but that's not what it's called. You would have to, I think I looked up like German tools. It's a special type of tool for German cars. I'll try to put a link in the video from Amazon where I got my set at, but it's a special tool that takes the bolts out that holds those brackets down that I was saying. It's 2 in the front and 2 on the side right here. And as far as that, that's pretty much everything. And that's holding the intake down. Now, the things that's in the way right here would be like a fuel distribution block or whatever. I don't know what it's called, but it's connected to your fuel lines, and your fuel rails sit under, like in this area underneath the manifold, and that all this crap is connected to your fuel rails underneath it here. And there's 2, I guess, fuel pressure regulators on the side. I don't know what they are, but it's 2 identical, sensors or whatever the hell they call on the side. Now, I've seen a video where they were just taking off, like it just unscrewed the fuel lines from this, and there's these 2 holding it down, and they just took the whole assembly off. Me, I unscrewed just the lines, and I left those sensors in place, and I just took the lines off, and that worked just fine too. But it might be a little bit easier just to take the sensors off and just undo. I believe it's just 2 lines instead of 2, 4 instead of 6. So yeah, that'll probably work a little easier. But either way, it's fine. So once I did that, I'm gonna turn it around and go to the back side. I also took the throttle body that goes right here somewhere. Took that off because that's going to be in the way. It's four screws holding that on. And another thing I want to mention: if you try this job, or if you try to do this yourself, and you notice that the bolts are super easy to take off, they're supposed to be that way, because pretty much everything on this car is made of aluminum, and can't over tighten it. Cannot over tighten it, or it's going to be hell to pay if a bolt break or anything. And speaking of shit breaking, before I got everything out, there's on the back side. Give me 1 second. Oh. Shit. Alright. Now, there's 3 hoses underneath. And they had clamps on them, like one-time use clamps or whatever, little squeeze clamps. So if you take them off, you just pop them off. You can't reuse them. And this one right here is actually broke. Coolant runs through here some type of way, where it's a hose that comes from a line and it comes up through here. And I noticed when I was taking everything apart that it was coolant like built up around here. When I went to go try to remove it, the whole thing just broke off. I mean, I would kind of expect that, being it's those plastic and it's, heating up and cooling off, heating up, cooling off, just getting brittle over time, and it breaks. But nonetheless, this hose, this hose, this is a hose. This is the crankcase breather filter or some shit like that. And I'm gonna have to find it. I'm gonna have to go to go to the Audi dealer, or find it. See how much this part costs online, so I can get this, so I can be able to put it all back together. But yeah, and besides all of that, this little fucker right here. Now there's a bracket that this connects to. Let me set this back down. There's a bracket that connects to, that wraps around in a way as though it sits right about here, and all it is, or matter of in this area would be your oil filter and oil filter housing. But the bracket, it wraps around in this area to hold the sign on. As you can see, one of the clips is right here. The Audi sign that covers all of this. It's no big deal. That, is a soft piece of aluminum. Now, there was a bitch trying to get a ratchet in this area. They have special ratchets, for this type of work too. It's called a bit ratchet. But there was, a bitch trying to get in this area to be able to undo this bolt. And I finally got in this area to get to this bolt, and I got it spinning. And the backside right here, that bolt right there, just kept spinning. So I'm like, I had everything loose, and this was the only thing holding me back. So I'm like, what the hell? So after trying, different ways, I even tried to get a pair of needle nose pliers down there to try to hold it while I twist it. That didn't work. And, eventually, like I said, it was getting dark. I was been at it all day. So I just decided to, bend it out the way. It ain't gonna hurt nothing that's gone. But you got this clip, you got that clip, you got that clip. That was just the fourth place for it to be mounted to. So it's not gonna make or break anything if if you break it off or whatever, if you run into the same problem I did, just boom, move it out the way. It's a soft piece of aluminum. You can pull it real easy and, comes right out. So, boom, that's pretty much, how I did it. You can go online and find other ways of doing it. It might be easier for you, but, this is a little bit more detailed on how to. And it's pretty much straightforward. It's just the way things are positioned and how you get to things that, make it pretty much complicated. Like if I had to do this again, it wouldn't take no time. Being as though I know exactly what to go to, and I wouldn't be it wouldn't be a learning experience. Like this was a learning experience. It took me every bit of 3 or 4 hours just to get this off, just to figure everything out without breaking anything. Like that was the main thing as far as taking this off. Now, some clips, were dry rotted or whatever, but as far as the it being broke or anything, they didn't break. But it's just the locking tab. Now, I'm just going to go buy some small zip ties and, the tabs that broke off, I'm just going to zip tie them together. No big deal. But, oh yeah, one other thing I forgot to mention in the front. Let me go back to the front. You got these little things. Now, I took one of them off, thinking I had to take it off, but you don't have to take them off. You just gotta be careful. Like I said, pulling the clips out. Now, what I did was, after I unloosened everything, I got it loose. It's one connection here, one, and another one that goes right there. Now, you can get to these before you pull it up. And if you can, you might be able to get to, where is it? Let me turn this light on. You might be able to get to this one. But after I got everything loose, pulled it up and I was able to get to this one. And these, you're going to definitely try to be careful with because they're in an awkward ass position. And you really don't want to fuck those up. And there's a little vent tube, I guess, that goes right here. And just pull that off. No big deal. And yeah, that's about it. Once again, I'm going to put the link in the description on where I got the tools from, the special tools, because that would be another headache if you decide that you're just going to, oh yeah, well, I'm going to take my fucking intake manifold off on my Audi today. And you go get the cracking all these bolts off, and then you run into those special bolts that I was talking about, the 12-point spline bolts, and you can't get them off because the Torx bit don't fit them. And then you gotta go to the auto parts store or whatever, if they even have them, and see if they got it. More than likely, I don't know. I didn't go to the auto parts store to get it because I didn't think they had it, but I just ordered a set off of Amazon. Wasn't no big deal to me because I still had to wait on the parts. Now, the reason why I took this off is because if you're an Audi person and you're watching this, you probably already know why I took it off. Because the oil filter housing, which would be right here. Now, what it is, the way it works, it mounts down into the, underneath of where the intake manifold is, because how the oil system is in the car. It runs underneath and through the filter and all that bull crap. Yeah, I ain't getting in all that. But I don't have the parts in front of me, but it's a O-ring, and then it's a oil filter housing gasket, which is pretty much two fucking O-rings in an 8 configuration. It's just changed both of them. The O-ring goes like it's two figure 8 ones that goes in the front, and then there's an O-ring that goes behind it. Change the O-ring, and then you change the 2 at the bottom, the figure 8 kind. Change them 2 at the bottom and put it all back together. Now, if you've been having oil leak problems in your Audi A8 or whatever, mine is a 2007. I can't speak for all of them. I pretty much just stepped into the Audi world, so I'm learning as I go. But if you see oil running down the front of your engine, like this would be the oil filter housing here. What it's doing underneath where it mounts to the engine is the sealing surface is no more good. Well, the gasket in between is no more good. And what it's doing is it's running out, and there's a little hole in there, a little small hole in the engine where it just runs out and runs down the bottom of your car. Now, when I first got my car, the guy, of course, I could tell he just wanted to get rid of it, and I really wanted the car. Me being mechanically inclined, I didn't really, care for too much of him saying that. Well, he initially told me that it was the bolt, the oil drain bolt leaking, and I'm like, oh, that's nothing. And another thing, the hood latch was, it was seized. It still worked, but it was seized up. So I just sprayed some penetrate oil on that, and it closes, but the sensor still says that it's open. So I might just have to get a new latch for that. But he said that it was the oil drain bolt that was leaking. I'm like, okay, that's nothing. I'll take that, bolt out, fix it, do what I gotta do. So, got the car home, put it on jack stands, looked up underneath there. Now, I noticed when I first looked, the oil pan, the bolts that I could get to, they were loose. Now, which is a common thing because, like I said, everything on the car is pretty much made of aluminum, and you cannot over tighten the bolts because they will break off. And if you break it off in a way that, it was already a bitch to get to, and you break a bolt off in it, like, it's just going to be hell trying to repair it. So I think, I don't know the torque specs on it. Y'all look that up, or if you know the torque specs, leave it in the comments. Appreciate it. But yeah, he pretty much just, made this problem seem minor in order for me to just buy it. Now, if I was somebody that didn't know about cars, or, wasn't handy with a, pair of pliers, I would have said no. I wouldn't have bought the car. Now, I'm going to eventually, get around to showing the car, do a little video on the car or whatever. But the car is actually a nice car. A nice car. Only other thing that, you know, I found to be wrong with the car, and that's that the the rear the rear climate control. Now it don't have switches or anything, but the vents that runs down the center of the armrest in the middle for the rear. Nothing blows out of there. So I'm trying to figure that out. If anybody know anything about that, leave a link in the comments, or tell me what I need to do in the comments. Appreciate it. But other than that, everything else works. Air suspension works. No check engine light. Nothing besides the hood latch indicator, and the brake pad indicator. And I got fresh cross-drill rotors and pads for the front. They already been put on in the back. I'll probably make a video on that too. But yeah, this motherfucker right here wasn't that bad. But as far as the oil leaking and everything, like, yeah, if it's running down the front of your car and it's looking like that came out the little vent shit right there. If it's running out the bottom of your car and you think it's the oil pan, you might think it's the oil pan, because all that shit is going to be oily down there. And like I was saying, I went down, I checked it myself. I thought it was the oil pan. I'm like, all right, I'll just tighten the bolts up. So I go to tighten the bolts up. They was loose, but at the same time, like, they were supposed to be loose. I just, one little simple crank on it. All right, that's snug. And at first, it's a line of hose, a pipe or something that runs right in front of the oil pan, which leaves you with no space to get to those bolts in the front of the oil pan. So I'm like, damn, all this oil leaking, and I can't even get to the bolts to tighten it up to try to at least slow it down. So, after, I tried that twice. I tried to get to those bolts twice. And after the second time, I had some engine degreaser and, all that stuff. I just sprayed it all down. Got all the oil and stuff off. Cleaned it up. And then I just let the car run. Let it run for, a couple minutes. And then I watched where the oil was coming from. And that's how I figured out it was the oil filter housing, because it wasn't coming from the oil pan. Those bolts were still clean and dry after I cleaned it off. And as soon as it started leaking, I just so happened to be looking down, like this would be the top of the car. This would be looking down, and I seen right in the middle, on this side, like a nice little stream of oil just run right down to the bottom of the car. I'm like, now at that point, it was kind of like, a sigh of relief, because those bolts on the oil pan, they would, just in a fucked up ass position, and you couldn't even get no wrench or nothing up in there. And as far as I could see, I would have to take the whole front end of my car off. I'm talking bumper, grill, headlights, radiator, all that shit was going to have to come off just for me to fucking tighten those bolts up and get that pipe out of the way. But luckily, it wasn't that. It just so happened to be the oil filter housing gasket. So, boom. Fast forward yesterday. Took this shit off. I just explained to y'all all the bolts, 10 bolts, 3 hoses in the back there. One little annoying bolt that's connected to a bracket that's sitting right there. If you can get to it and get that bolt off, good. But if not, just bend the bracket out the way, and you can break it if you want to. It just really don't matter. You got 1, 2, 3, 4. That's another one to look just like this. 4 electrical connections. Take those off. There's four brackets. 2 right here and 2 in this area. They got special 12-point spline bits. 12-point spline bolts. 2 right here, 2 right here. 1 right here, 1 right there. There's 2 tabs for the wire looms. They held down by 10mm bolts. Boom, boom, take them off. And the fuel lines. You can do them 2 ways. You can just disconnect the lines and leave the regulators or whatever they are. Correct me in the comments. You can leave those there. Or you can just take them off and take all this off as an assembly and just undo the 2 the 2 fuel lines that connect to this. Take all that off. Undo, it's hoses right here. Just take them off. It's hose go right here. Hose go right there. This, like I said, crankcase filter. It's a big tube. It goes from here to your valve cover for your crankcase, breather, whatever the fuck. It's bullshit because what happens is that's connected to your throttle body, and to keep, like, if you know about diesel trucks, they have a tube that runs down the bottom of the engine, and sometimes they blow out smoke. That's blow by. And that's the same thing your car does. And all that does is suck it out. Suck it out the vent, out the valve cover, through there and through your engine and back. It just repeats the cycle all over. But what it does is, let me flip this over, show you real quick. This ain't too bad, I guess. I don't know, but that's what happens. Carbon buildup. Whole lot of it. Whole lot of that shit. And don't let it get too bad, because these supposed to open and close in a way that, that affects the performance of the car. That's what all this crap is for. All this linkage and stuff for. So when the weather clear up, it's raining now. So when the weather clear up and I get the rest of the parts I need, I'm gonna make a video on putting this shit back together. And I'm also going to do a video on cleaning the carbon out of the car, so I can, get some of its performance back, some gas mileage, because I don't know how much premium gas is where y'all live at, but I'm pretty sure it ain't cheap. And yeah, nobody got time to be going back and forth to the gas station, putting gas in a car that's only getting fucking 9 or 10 miles to the gallon because it got carbon buildup in it. So yeah, once I get the oil problem out the way, next thing, carbon. I'm gonna try a few things, see what works better, and I'm probably just gonna stick with that and do it in maybe like 5,000 mile intervals or something like that. Because, yeah, I would like to have my car running good. But yeah, that's it. That's all I got. Comment, like, share if you want to. Let me know if I'm said some wrong shit. Let me know if I missed something. Tell me about your experience. Ask you some questions. I might be able to answer them for you.